This video contains images and content generated or assisted by artificial intelligence.
"You are making a mistake," she said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't crack. It was the terrifyingly calm voice of someone holding a detonator. The flight attendant just sneered. "Honey, the only mistake was you thinking you could afford seat 1A. Now get off my plane." They dragged her down the jet bridge like a criminal. They threw her carry-on onto the wet tarmac. They thought they had just removed a disruptive passenger. They didn't know they had just manhandled the woman who was scheduled to sign the wire transfer that would save their bankrupt airline the next morning. 2 hours later, the airline's stock plummeted 60%. The CEO was vomiting in a trash can, and the pilot? He was about to find out that the woman in the hoodie wasn't just a passenger. She was the owner. Buckle up. This is the story of the most expensive seat in aviation history. The rain at JFK International Airport was relentless, hammering against the fuselage of Flight 402 to London Heathrow like handfuls of gravel. Inside the cabin of the Stratton Airlines Boeing 777, the air was dry and smelled faintly of recycled sanitizer and expensive leather. Jordan Banks adjusted her noise-cancelling headphones and pulled her oversized grey hoodie tighter. She was exhausted. She hadn't slept in 36 hours. The merger between her private equity firm, Obsidian Holdings, and the European tech giant Nexus had just closed. It was a brutal negotiation, but she had walked away with a portfolio worth $12 billion. She didn't look like a billionaire. She looked like a tired grad student. No makeup, hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing Lululemon leggings and battered Nike Dunks. She curled into seat 1A, the prime spot in the first-class cabin, and closed her eyes. All she wanted was a glass of champagne and 8 hours of sleep. "Excuse me." The voice was sharp, nasal, and dripping with irritation. Jordan opened one eye. Standing over her was a flight attendant. Her name tag read Brenda. She had a tight, frozen smile that didn't reach her eyes, and she was holding a tablet like a weapon. "Can I help you?" Jordan asked, her voice raspy from lack of sleep. "I need to see your boarding pass," Brenda said. She didn't ask. She demanded. Jordan sighed, reached into her hoodie pocket, and pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen and held up the QR code. "Seat 1A, Jordan Banks." Brenda glanced at the phone, then back at Jordan. Her eyes swept over the hoodie, the sneakers, the messy hair. She let out a short, derisive puff of air. "I need to see the actual ticket, miss. Sometimes the app glitches for upgrades." "I didn't get an upgrade," Jordan said, sitting up straighter. "I bought the ticket full price 3 days ago. Is there a problem?" "The problem," Brenda said, leaning in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper that carried across the silent cabin, "is that this seat is reserved for our priority clientele. I think there's been a system error. I'm going to need you to gather your things and step back to the gate agent so we can sort this out. I have a seat for you in Economy Plus." Jordan stared at her. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. "I'm not going to the gate. I paid $12,000 for this seat. I'm staying right here." Brenda's fake smile vanished. "Miss, don't make this difficult. We have a full flight." At that moment, a man boarded. He was loud, wearing a bespoke Italian suit that cost more than a Honda Civic, and he was barking into a cell phone. "Yeah, tell the senator I'm on my way. Yeah, Stratton always holds a spot for me. Don't worry about it." He stopped at row 1, looked at Jordan, and then looked at Brenda. He raised an eyebrow. "Brenda, sweetheart, there's someone in my seat." This was Charles Chip Kensington, the son of a real estate mogul, a minor Instagram celebrity, and a man who had never been told no in his entire life. Brenda's face instantly softened into genuine warmth. "Mr. Kensington, so good to see you. I'm so sorry for the delay. We were just clearing up a clerical error." She turned back to Jordan, her face hardening like concrete. "Miss Banks, I will ask you one last time. Grab your bag. Move. Now." Jordan didn't move. She unbuckled her seatbelt, but not to leave. She stood up to face Brenda eye to eye. Jordan was tall, 5'10", and despite her casual clothes, she carried herself with the lethal posture of a woman who ate sharks for breakfast in the boardroom. "I know who he is," Jordan said, gesturing to Chip Kensington, who was now tapping his foot impatiently. "And I don't care. This is a paid ticket. If you double-booked, that is a Stratton Airlines problem, not a Jordan Banks problem. Offer him a voucher and get him a seat on the next flight." Chip laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. "A voucher? Do you know who I am? I'm a Diamond Medallion member. My father plays golf with your CEO, Arthur Wellington. I don't wait for flights." He stepped closer, invading Jordan's personal space. "Look, sweetheart, take the economy seat. You look like you're used to riding the bus anyway." The racism wasn't even subtle. It was hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. The other passengers in first class, mostly older white men, buried their faces in their newspapers. No one said a word. "I'm not moving," Jordan repeated, her voice dropping an octave. "And if you want to keep your job, Brenda, I suggest you check the manifest one more time and look at the notes under my name." Brenda scoffed. "I don't need to check anything." She marched to the cockpit door and knocked. A moment later, the cockpit door opened. Captain Richard Sterling emerged. He was a man in his 50s, silver-haired, with the arrogance of a pilot who thought he was a god of the sky. He looked at Chip, gave him a nod of recognition, and then looked at Jordan with disdain. "What is the problem here?" Sterling asked. "She refuses to vacate the seat for Mr. Kensington, Captain," Brenda said, playing the victim perfectly. "She's being belligerent. She's disturbing the other passengers." Sterling looked at Jordan. "Miss, on my aircraft, the crew's instructions are federal law. If you are told to move, you move." "I have a valid ticket," Jordan said, holding her ground. "I am the CEO of Obsidian Holdings. I am traveling for a meeting that directly concerns the future of this airline. If you remove me, you are setting off a chain reaction you do not understand." Sterling laughed. He actually laughed. "Obsidian Holdings, never heard of it. And I've been flying for 30 years, darling. I know who the players are. You look like you're rushing a sorority, not running a company. Now, get off my plane, or I call Port Authority." "Call them," Jordan said. She sat back down, buckled her belt, and put her headphones back on. Sterling's face turned red. His authority had never been challenged like this, certainly not by someone who looked like her. "Fine," Sterling spat. "Brenda, call security. Get her off. Drag her if you have to." The wait for security was agonizingly tense. Chip Kensington took the empty seat across the aisle, sipping a pre-flight scotch and smirking at Jordan. "You're embarrassing yourself," he jeered. "Just walk away." Jordan didn't look at him. She was texting. Her thumbs moved across her phone screen with blurring speed. She wasn't texting a friend. She was texting Samuel Roth, the chief legal officer of Obsidian Holdings. Message to Roth. "Stratton Flight 402. Being removed forcibly. Pilot Richard Sterling. Attendant Brenda. Passenger Chip Kensington involved. Start the protocol. Kill the deal. Reply from Roth. On it. Do not resist physically. Let them do it. We need the footage." 2 minutes later, 3 Port Authority officers boarded. They were breathless and agitated. Brenda pointed a manicured finger at Jordan. "Her! She's trespassing. She's threatening the crew. The lead officer, a man named Officer Miller, approached. "Ma'am, you need to come with us." "I am a ticketed passenger," Jordan said calmly. She held her hands up, showing she was no threat. "I have broken no laws. This is discrimination, plain and simple. Ma'am, the captain wants you off. That means you're off. Don't make us use force." "I'm not walking off," Jordan said. "Because if I walk off, I admit I was wrong. I'm not wrong." Officer Miller nodded to his partner. "Grab her." The scene that followed was chaotic and violent. The second officer grabbed Jordan's arm and yanked. The hoodie bunched up around her neck, choking her. She gasped but didn't scream. She went limp, making herself dead weight, a passive resistance tactic. They hauled her out of the seat. Her hip slammed against the armrest. Her laptop bag fell open, spilling files onto the floor. Brenda kicked the files toward her. "Get your trash," she hissed. Chip Kensington was filming it on his phone, laughing. "Bye-bye," he yelled. As they dragged her down the aisle, Jordan made eye contact with Captain Sterling, who was watching from the galley with his arms crossed. "Captain Sterling," Jordan said, her voice strained as she was manhandled. "Remember this moment. It's the last time you'll ever fly a commercial jet." "Get her out of here," Sterling roared. They dragged her onto the jet bridge. The cool, damp air hit her face. They pushed her against the corrugated metal wall of the tunnel. "You're lucky we don't arrest you for assault," Officer Miller said, breathing hard. "You're banned from Stratton. Get your bag and get out of the terminal." Jordan straightened her hoodie. She brushed the dirt off her leggings. She reached down, picked up her bag, and checked her phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. She looked at the officers, then at the closed door of the plane. The engines were already spooling up. "I'm not the one who's banned," she whispered to herself. She turned and walked back up the jet bridge, not toward the exit, but toward the VIP first-class lounge. She needed a secure line. She had a $5 billion funding round to cancel. Inside the exclusive Stratton Admirals Club lounge, the receptionist tried to stop her. "Miss, you can't be in here. You look—" Jordan slapped a black titanium American Express Centurion card on the desk. "I own the building this lounge is in. Get me a private conference room, now." The receptionist looked at the name on the card, turned pale, and immediately buzzed her through. Jordan entered the glass-walled conference room overlooking the tarmac. She could see Flight 402 pushing back from the gate. She watched it turn. Captain Sterling was in that cockpit, probably joking with Chip Kensington about the trash they just took out. She dialed a number from memory. It rang twice. "This is Arthur," a deep voice answered. It was Arthur Wellington, the CEO of Stratton Airlines. He sounded cheerful. "Jordan? I didn't expect to hear from you until you landed in London. We have the champagne on ice for the signing ceremony tomorrow. The press release is already drafted. This merger is going to save us, Jordan. I can't thank you enough." Jordan stared at the plane, taxiing toward the runway. "Arthur," she said. Her voice was devoid of emotion. "There is no signing." Silence on the other end. "Excuse me." "The connection is bad, Jordan. It sounded like you said—" "I said there is no signing. The deal is dead. Obsidian Holdings is withdrawing the $5 billion liquidity injection, effective immediately. I'm also calling the secondary investors at Vanguard and the Teachers' Pension Fund in 10 minutes to recommend they dump your stock." "Jordan, wait. Arthur's voice cracked. "What is going on? We have a contract. We have a term sheet." "The term sheet had a morality and reputation clause, Arthur, specifically regarding the conduct of your senior staff." "What are you talking about? Did something happen with the legal team?" "I was just dragged off Flight 402 by your security," Jordan said. "Your flight attendant, Brenda, called me trash. Your captain, Richard Sterling, told me I looked like I belonged on a bus and ordered my removal to make room for Chip Kensington. They assaulted me, Arthur. They physically assaulted your lead investor because they didn't think a black woman in a hoodie could possibly afford a first-class seat. The silence on the phone was heavy. It was the silence of a man watching his life burn down. "Oh my God," Arthur whispered. "Jordan, please. Tell me you're joking." Sterling did what?" "He's taxiing to the runway right now," Jordan said. "You have about 3 minutes before he takes off. If that plane leaves the ground with him in the cockpit, I will not only pull the funding, I will sue Stratton Airlines into receivership. I will spend every penny of that $5 billion destroying your company. Jordan, please, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, Arthur. I'm giving you a chance to save your company. Ground the plane. Return it to the gate. I want Sterling fired. I want Brenda fired. I want an apology issued to the press before the sun sets, or I destroy you. I can't recall a flight once it's taxiing, just for a personnel issue. The FAA will— It's not a personnel issue, Arthur. Jordan cut him off. It's a bankruptcy issue. You have 60 seconds. She hung up. She watched the plane. It was nearing the runway threshold. It stopped. 10 seconds passed. 20 seconds. Then the nose of the massive Boeing 777 turned. It wasn't turning onto the runway. It was turning onto the taxiway. It was coming back. High in the cockpit of Flight 402, Captain Richard Sterling was feeling good. He had successfully exerted his authority, removed a nuisance, and was now taxiing a 300-ton machine toward freedom. The engines hummed with a low, powerful vibration that resonated through the floorboards, the feeling of raw power that Sterling lived for. He toggled the radio to ground control. "Kennedy ground, Stratton 402, approaching holding point Alpha, ready for handoff to tower." The radio crackled. Usually the response was a standard frequency change, but this time the pause was too long. 3 seconds. 4 seconds. "Stratton 402. The air traffic controller's voice came back, and it sounded different. Tense. "Cancel takeoff clearance. Hold position immediately." Sterling frowned, glancing at his first officer, a younger man named David. "Say again, ground. We are number 1 for departure. We're burning fuel here." "Stratton 402, do not proceed. You have a mandatory return to gate order. Company directive. Priority 1. Sterling slammed his hand on the throttle quadrant. "Company directive? What the hell is that? We're already 10 minutes late because of that passenger drama. Tell dispatch we are wheels up in 2. "Negative, Captain." The controller's voice was firm, almost icy. "Operations has flagged this flight. You are to return to gate B14 immediately. Your gate is being held open. Do not argue, 402. This comes from the top." Sterling felt a cold knot form in his stomach. From the top. In his 30 years of flying, he had never been ordered back to the gate once the doors were armed, unless there was a bomb threat or a wing fire. He grabbed the handset for the PA system. He had to lie. He couldn't tell the passengers the company was recalling them. It looked weak. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain." His voice was smooth, practicing the deception he had perfected over decades. "We have a slight indicator light on the cargo door. Nothing serious, safety first. We're going to head back to the gate, have a mechanic take a 10-second look, and be on our way. Apologies for the delay." In the first-class cabin, a collective groan went up. Chip Kensington slammed his scotch glass down on the tray table. "You have got to be kidding me. I have a dinner reservation at the Shard." Brenda rushed over, her face a mask of apologetic panic. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Kensington. It's just technical. The captain is the best in the fleet. He'll get us back in the air in moments." "He better," Chip snapped, pulling out his phone. or I'm calling my father." As the massive Boeing 777 began the slow, lumbering turn back toward the terminal, the atmosphere in the plane shifted. It wasn't just frustration, it was confusion. The plane wasn't moving like it had a mechanical issue. It was moving fast, aggressive. In the cockpit, Sterling was fuming. "Who is it?" he muttered to David. "Is it the FAA? Did we miss a slot?" David looked at the ACR's computer screen, which displayed messages from headquarters. His face went pale. "Captain," David whispered, "look at the message from HQ." Sterling looked down. The screen displayed a single line of text in flashing red letters. "Do not deplane passengers. Wait for CEO arrival. Secure cockpit." "CEO arrival?" Sterling laughed nervously. "Arthur Wellington. He's in London. He's supposed to meet us there for the merger." "Apparently not," David said, looking out the side window. "Because look who is standing at gate B14. Sterling looked out as they approached the jet bridge. Standing behind the glass of the terminal, surrounded by 3 men in dark suits, was Arthur Wellington. And he didn't look like he was there to celebrate. He looked like a man who was about to conduct an execution. Sterling felt the first trickle of sweat run down his back. He thought back to the woman in the hoodie, Obsidian Holdings. The name echoed in his mind. He had laughed at it. Obsidian Holdings. Suddenly, the name sounded familiar. He had seen it on the Bloomberg terminal in the crew lounge earlier that morning. Obsidian Holdings to acquire 40% stake in Stratton Airlines. His hands started to shake. He looked at his hands. Hands that had flown through hurricanes and war zones, and they were trembling uncontrollably. "Oh God," Sterling whispered. The silence in the cockpit of Flight 402 was heavier than the 300 tons of aircraft beneath them. Captain Richard Sterling's hands were slick with sweat on the tiller as he guided the massive Boeing 737 off the active taxiway and back toward the terminal. The turn was sharp, aggressive, a physical manifestation of his frustration. Beside him, First Officer David kept his eyes glued to the instrument panel, refusing to look at his captain. The younger pilot could feel the radioactive toxicity radiating from the left seat. "This is insane," Sterling muttered, his voice tight. "Recall to gate for a company directive? In 30 years, David. 30 years I have never seen this. It's probably some FAA paperwork screw-up. Or Wellington wants to send a forgotten briefcase to London." "I don't think it's a briefcase, sir," David said quietly, pointing to the A-car's screen again. The message was still flashing. "Secure cockpit. Do not deplane passengers." "Whatever it is," Sterling snapped. "I'm going to have dispatchers head on a spike when we land. Do they know how much fuel we're burning just taxiing this beast back? The delay costs alone." In the cabin, the atmosphere was curdling. The initial annoyance of the passengers had morphed into a restless anxiety. The plane wasn't just returning, it was moving with a sense of urgent purpose that unnerved them. Chip Kensington, nursing his 3rd scotch in seat 1D, was loudly performing his displeasure for an audience that had stopped caring. "Unbelievable," he barked, slamming his hand on the armrest. "I'm tweeting this. Stratton Airlines, the Greyhound bus of the skies. My father is going to hear about this before we even park." Brenda, the flight attendant, was fluttering around him like a moth near a flame, desperate to keep her most important passenger happy. "Mr. Kensington, please, I can offer you another drink while we wait. Maybe some warm nuts?" "I don't want nuts, Brenda. I want to be in London," Chip sneered. He looked at the empty seat 1A, the seat Jordan had been dragged from, and scoffed. "At least we got rid of the riff-raff. Can you imagine if we were stuck on the tarmac with her sitting there? Probably would have started chanting or something." Brenda let out a nervous, high-pitched giggle. "Oh, absolutely, sir. You were so brave to stand up to her." The plane lurched as it came to a halt at gate B14. The engine spooled down, the whine descending into a low, ominous rumble before cutting out completely. The silence that followed was sudden and absolute. Usually, when a plane returns to the gate, the jet bridge moves slowly. The ground crew takes their time. Not today. Through the window, passengers watched as the jet bridge slammed against the fuselage with a dull thud. It was fast, urgent. "Finally," Chip said, unbuckling his seatbelt. "I'm getting off. I'll take a private jet. Tell the captain to retrieve my bags." "Sir, the seatbelt sign is still on," Brenda began. Then, the main cabin door didn't just open. It was thrown open. The sound of the latch releasing echoed like a gunshot through the first-class cabin. Standing in the doorway was not a gate agent. It wasn't a mechanic. It wasn't even the ground operations manager. It was Arthur Wellington. The CEO of Stratton Airlines was a legend in the industry, a man known for his calm demeanor, his silver hair, and his grandfatherly smile in press photos. But today, Arthur Wellington looked like the god of thunder. His face was a mask of fury, his usually impeccable suit jacket unbuttoned, his tie slightly askew as if he had run all the way from the boardroom. Behind him stood two large men in dark suits, Stratton's internal security, and behind them, obscured by the shadows of the jet bridge, was a silhouette in a grey hoodie. Arthur stepped onto the plane. The air in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Mr. Wellington!" Brenda gasped, her hand flying to her throat. She instantly morphed into her most sycophantic persona. "What a surprise! We were just handling a technical issue. The captain said—" Arthur walked past her, as if she were a ghost. He didn't even blink. He marched straight to the cockpit door, which was already open. Sterling was standing there, hat in hand, a confused smile plastered on his face. "Arthur, to what do I owe the honor? Did we forget a VIP? I hope this isn't about the delay, because I can explain." "Step out, Richard," Arthur said. His voice wasn't loud. It was a low, vibrating growl. "Excuse me?" Sterling blinked. "Step out of the cockpit." Arthur enunciated every word like he was speaking to a slow child. Sterling's smile faltered. He stepped into the galley area, facing the first-class passengers. "Arthur, look, we had a security situation earlier, a disruptive passenger. I made a command decision to remove her to ensure the safety of the flight. Standard protocol." "Standard protocol," Arthur repeated, his voice dripping with acid. "Is that what you call it?" "She was belligerent, Arthur. She refused to show a ticket. She was trespassing in a first-class seat." Sterling's voice rose, trying to regain his authority in front of the passengers. She looked like she didn't belong. "We have standards at Stratton." "Standards?" Arthur said, shaking his head slowly. "You talk about standards." Arthur turned back to the open door. He extended a hand. "Please," Arthur said to the shadow in the jet bridge. "Come in." Jordan Banks stepped onto the plane. She hadn't fixed her hair. She hadn't changed her clothes. She was still wearing the battered Nike Dunks and the oversized hoodie, but the way she walked onto that plane was different. Before, she had walked like a tired traveler. Now, she walked like a predatory animal entering its own territory. She stopped next to Arthur Wellington. She looked at Sterling. She didn't say a word. She just stared at him with eyes that were cold, dark, and utterly unamused. Sterling looked at her, then at Arthur, then back at her. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Why was the CEO bringing the trash back on board? "Arthur," Sterling laughed nervously. a wet, desperate sound. This is her. This is the disruptive passenger. Why are you bringing her back? Is she being arrested? Arthur Wellington turned to the first-class cabin. He raised his voice, projecting it so that everyone, from row 1 to row 50, could hear him. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption," Arthur announced. "My name is Arthur Wellington, CEO of Stratton Airlines." He placed a hand on Jordan's shoulder. "And this," Arthur continued, his voice trembling with suppressed rage, "is Jordan Banks. She is not a disruptive passenger. She is the founder and managing partner of Obsidian Holdings. She is the investor who, as of 9 a.m. this morning, was scheduled to sign a check for $5 billion to save this airline from bankruptcy." The silence that followed was physical. It slammed into the passengers. Chip Kensington dropped his phone. It clattered onto the floor, but he didn't reach for it. He sat with his mouth open, staring at the woman he had jeered at. Sterling felt the blood drain from his face so fast, he actually felt lightheaded. The world tilted on its axis. Obsidian Holdings. The name crashed into his memory. He had seen the memo. He had ignored it. $5 billion? Sterling whispered. Jordan stepped forward. She was shorter than Sterling, but in that moment she towered over him. "I told you," Jordan said. Her voice was soft, calm, and terrifying. "I told you I had a ticket. I told you I had a meeting. I told you that you were making a mistake." Sterling stammered, his hands shaking. I didn't know. You were wearing a hoodie. You looked." "I looked like what?" Jordan asked. She tilted her head. "Finish the sentence, Captain." "What did I look like?" Sterling opened his mouth, but no words came out. He knew that any word he said would be the nail in his coffin. "I looked like someone you could bully," Jordan answered for him. "You didn't see a passenger. You saw a target. You saw a black woman in comfortable clothes, and you decided I was trash. That was the word you used, wasn't it?" She turned her head slowly, locking eyes with Brenda. Brenda was pressed against the galley wall, hyperventilating. Tears were streaming down her face, cutting tracks through her heavy foundation. "And you," Jordan said to Brenda. "You told me I belonged on a bus. You kicked my files across the floor." I was just following orders," Brenda sobbed. "The captain said, Mr. Kensington said." "I don't care what they said," Jordan said. "I care about what you did. You treated a human being like garbage because you thought you had power over her. Well, let's see how you handle power when it's used against you." Arthur Wellington stepped between them. He turned to face Sterling. The sorrow in Arthur's eyes was gone, replaced by steel. "Captain Sterling," Arthur said formally, "in 30 years of running this airline, I have never been more ashamed than I am at this moment. You are a disgrace to the uniform." "Arthur, please," Sterling begged, reaching out a hand. "It was a misunderstanding. I've given my life to this company. My pension. I'm retiring in 2 years. You can't let one mistake." "One mistake," Arthur roared. The sudden volume made everyone jump. "You assaulted our lead investor. You racially profiled a passenger. You dragged a woman off my plane to make room for a man because of his last name." Arthur pointed to the 4 gold stripes on Sterling's shoulders, the epaulets that signified his rank as captain. "Take them off," Arthur commanded. "Arthur, take them off!" Arthur screamed, his face turning purple. "Now!" With trembling fingers, Richard Sterling reached up. He unbuttoned the left epaulet, then the right. He held the gold stripes in his hand. 30 years of status, reduced to 2 pieces of fabric. "Give them to me," Arthur said. Sterling dropped them into Arthur's palm. "You are fired for cause," Arthur said, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "Gross misconduct, violation of federal anti-discrimination laws, and sabotage of a corporate merger. You will receive no severance. Your pension is frozen pending litigation. You are done." "Get your bag," Jordan added. She pointed to the cockpit. "And don't leave your trash." Sterling stumbled into the cockpit. He grabbed his flight bag. He walked out, head down, passing the passengers who were now all holding up their phones, recording his walk of shame. He didn't look at Jordan. He couldn't. He walked off the plane and into oblivion. Arthur turned to Brenda. Brenda didn't wait to be asked. She was already unpinning her wings, her hands shaking so hard she pricked her finger. Blood smeared on the silver wings. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I'm so sorry." "Leave," Arthur said. "Your employment is terminated. Security will escort you out of the building." Brenda ran. She literally ran off the plane, her sobs echoing down the jet bridge. The cabin was silent again. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning. Then Arthur turned his gaze to Seat 1D. Chip Kensington was trying to make himself small. He had picked up his phone and was pretending to text, avoiding eye contact at all costs. "Mr. Kensington," Arthur said. Chip jumped. "Arthur, hey, look, crazy mix-up, huh? I had no idea who she was. If you had known she was rich, you would have treated her with respect," Jordan interrupted. "Is that it?" Chip swallowed hard. "Well, I mean, it's first class. There are expectations." "You are right," Jordan said. "There are expectations." She pulled out her phone. She tapped the screen and turned it around so Chip could see. It was a video, the video Chip had taken of her being dragged. "You posted this?" Jordan said. "You laughed. You captioned it Trash Day." "I can delete it," Chip said quickly. "I'll delete it right now." "Too late," Jordan said. "My legal team has already preserved it. And since you recorded audio and video in a secure federal environment without consent, and since you were interfering with a flight crew during a security incident, well, Samuel Roth is very creative with the law." Arthur stepped closer to Chip's seat. "Mr. Kensington, Stratton Airlines has tolerated your behavior for years because of your father. We have looked the other way when you abused our staff, when you demanded upgrades, when you acted like you owned this plane." Arthur leaned down, his face inches from Chip's. "You don't own this plane. She does." Arthur stood up and pointed to the door. "Get out." "You can't kick me off," Chip protested, his face flushing red. "I'm a Diamond Medallion member. I have rights." "I am revoking your status," Arthur said. "And I am placing you on the permanent no-fly list for Stratton Airlines and all our alliance partners. If you don't leave this seat in 10 seconds, the FBI agents waiting at the gate will remove you, and I don't think they'll be as gentle as Brenda was." Chip looked at the door. He saw the dark suits of the federal agents waiting just beyond the threshold. He grabbed his briefcase. He stood up, knocking his Scotch glass onto the floor. "My father will buy this airline and fire all of you," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Your father," Jordan said calmly, "is going to be too busy dealing with the SEC investigation into your insider trading to buy anything." "Goodbye, Chip." Chip froze. He looked at Jordan with pure terror. Then he fled. He pushed past Arthur, scrambled down the aisle, and disappeared. With the villains gone, the energy in the cabin shifted. It wasn't tense anymore. It was shocked. Arthur Wellington exhaled a long, shuddering breath. He looked 10 years older than he had 10 minutes ago. He turned to Jordan. "Jordan," he said softly, his voice breaking. "I have done what you asked. They are gone. I will issue the apology. Please, the deal, the funding. We have families depending on this. The pilots, the mechanics, the gate agents. They aren't Sterling. They aren't Brenda. Don't punish them." Jordan looked around the cabin. She saw the faces of the other passengers. She saw the terrified flight crew huddled in the galley, the ones who hadn't said anything, but who hadn't helped either. She walked over to seat 1A, the seat she had been dragged from. She picked up her backpack from where the crew had left it. She dusted it off. "I won't sign the deal, Arthur," she said. Arthur closed his eyes. He swayed slightly, as if he had been punched. I understand. I suppose I can't blame you." "I won't sign the original deal," Jordan corrected. Arthur's eyes snapped open. Jordan reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a cocktail napkin. It was crumpled. On it, she had scrawled some numbers in black Sharpie during her time in the lounge. "The original deal was $5 billion for 40%, Jordan said, her voice clear and businesslike. That valuation was based on a functioning airline with a reputable brand. As of today, your brand is toxic. Your management controls are non-existent. Your HR department is a liability." She held out the napkin. "I'll still give you the $5 billion, but the price has gone up." Arthur took the napkin. His hands shook as he read it. 51%? Arthur whispered. "Jordan, that's control. That's everything. You would own the company. I would answer to you." "Yes," Jordan said. "You would." She stepped closer to him. "Because, Arthur, clearly you can't run this place alone. You let a culture of arrogance fester until it rotted. I'm going to cut out the rot. I'm going to fire the HR director. I'm going to retrain every single employee. I'm going to make this airline safe for people who look like me." She looked him in the eye. "Do we have a deal? Or do I take my $5 billion and go start my own airline?" Arthur looked at the napkin. He looked at the empty cockpit. He looked at the passengers watching him. He knew he had no choice. But more than that, he knew she was right. He took a pen from his pocket. He placed the napkin on the drink cart. And he signed it. "We have a deal, Madam Chairwoman," Arthur said quietly. Jordan nodded. She didn't smile. Not yet. She turned to the cabin. The passengers were staring at her in awe. "Sorry for the delay, everyone," Jordan announced, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "We have a new pilot coming on board, Captain Davies. He's excellent. We'll be in the air in 20 minutes. She paused, then looked at the new flight crew that had just boarded to replace Brenda's team. "And just so we are clear," Jordan said to the new lead flight attendant, "on my airline, we treat every passenger in every seat like they are the CEO, because you never know. One day, they might be." She sat down in seat 1A. She buckled her seatbelt. She pulled her hood up. And as the plane began to push back for the second time, Jordan Banks finally allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. She closed her eyes, listening to the engines roar to life, a sound that now belonged to her. The flight to London was the quietest in the history of commercial aviation. For 6 hours and 40 minutes, nobody in the first-class cabin spoke above a whisper. The new pilot, a reserve captain named Captain Vance, had been rushed onto the plane to replace Sterling. He flew the aircraft with an almost terrified gentleness, as if he were afraid that bumping a cloud might cause the woman in seat 1A to liquidate his mortgage. Jordan slept. She slept the deep, dreamless sleep of the vindicated. When she woke up 30 minutes prior to landing at Heathrow, there was a hot towel waiting for her before she even opened her eyes. The flight attendants, a new crew that had replaced Brenda's team, treated her not like a passenger, but like royalty. When the wheels touched down in London, the world had already changed. While Jordan was in the air, the video of her being dragged off the plane had gone viral. But it wasn't Chip Kensington's version. It was a video shot by a teenager in row 3 named Sarah Jenkins. Sarah had filmed the entire interaction, Brenda's sneering tone, Sterling's arrogance, the physical assault, and Jordan's calm, terrifying warning. By the time Flight 402 taxied to the gate at Heathrow, the hashtag #WhatABoycottStratton was trending #1 globally on X, formerly Twitter. The stock had dipped, but then a second news story broke. Black female billionaire buys controlling stake in airline mid-flight. The stock didn't just bounce back, it skyrocketed. The market loved the ruthlessness. They loved the drama. They loved Jordan Banks. But for the villains of our story, the landing was far less smooth. This is where the karma hit, and it hit like a freight train. Richard Sterling didn't just lose a job, he lost an identity. Getting fired for cause meant that his pension, a nest egg worth nearly $2.5 million, accumulated over 30 years, was frozen pending legal review. Stratton Airlines, now under the directive of the new board chairwoman Jordan Banks, fought him in arbitration. They didn't just win, they humiliated him. During the arbitration hearing, Jordan's legal team, led by the shark-like Samuel Roth, played the cockpit voice recorder tapes. They played the audio of Sterling laughing about taking out the trash. They played his comments about Jordan's appearance. The arbitrator ruled that Sterling's conduct constituted gross misconduct and brand sabotage. He was stripped of his pension entirely. But it got worse. The FAA launched an investigation into his past conduct. It turned out Flight 402 wasn't the first time Sterling had kicked a minority passenger off a flight. It was just the first time he had done it to a billionaire. The FAA revoked his airline transport pilot, ATP, license permanently. 6 months after the incident, a journalist from the Wall Street Journal found Sterling. He wasn't flying jets. He wasn't sailing his boat, the Sky King, either. He had been forced to sell it to pay his legal fees. He was working as a floor manager at a logistics warehouse in New Jersey, supervising the loading of cargo trucks. When the journalist asked him for a comment, Sterling simply spat on the ground and walked away. He is currently being sued by 3 other former passengers who recognized him from the viral video and realized they, too, had been victims of his discrimination. He lives in a small rented apartment, and his wife of 20 years left him a month after the incident, citing the public humiliation. If Sterling's fall was tragic, Chip Kensington's was spectacular. Chip thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. When the FBI met him at the gate, they didn't arrest him immediately, but they seized his devices. They found more than just a video of an airline assault. Remember, Chip was a loudmouth. He used his phone for everything, including discussing insider trading tips with his father's golf buddies. Jordan's lawyer, Samuel Roth, had flagged Chip for violating federal wiretapping laws by recording in a secure area. It was a petty charge, a hook to get the phone seized. But once the feds had the phone, they found the text messages. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, indicted Chip Kensington for insider trading 3 weeks later. His father, the real estate mogul Preston Kensington, released a public statement the day of the indictment. The Kensington family condemns the actions of Charles. He has been removed from the family trust and relieving of his duties at Kensington Enterprises, effective immediately. Chip didn't just lose his seat in 1A, he lost his inheritance. The last public sighting of Chip was outside a federal courthouse in Manhattan. He wasn't wearing a bespoke Italian suit. He was wearing an oversized windbreaker, trying to hide his face from the paparazzi. He eventually pleaded guilty to securities fraud to avoid a 10-year sentence. He served 18 months in a minimum security facility. He is now banned from every major airline in the United States and works as a consultant for a mid-tier crypto scam that is currently under investigation. Brenda fared perhaps the worst of all, because she didn't have Sterling's savings or Chip's connections. The video of her sneering at Jordan became a meme. It was everywhere. The Brenda face, a look of pure, unearned superiority, became a symbol of Karens worldwide. She was fired, obviously, but the internet never forgets. She tried to get a job at another airline, flagged. She tried to get a job at a hotel chain, flagged. She tried to get a job as a receptionist at a dental office. The dentist saw the video and rescinded the offer. She was unhireable in any role that required customer interaction. She eventually had to move back to her hometown in rural Ohio, changing her name legally to escape the harassment. In a twist of irony, she found work at a call center. One day, a caller was irate, yelling at her about a bill. Brenda tried to de-escalate, using her old customer service voice. The caller paused. "Wait," the voice on the other end said. "I know that voice. Are you the lady from the plane?" Brenda hung up. She quit the next day. She now lives off disability checks and refuses to leave her house. And what of the airline? Under Arthur Wellington, Stratton Airlines was a dying dinosaur. Under Jordan Banks, it became a titan. The day after the incident, Jordan walked into the headquarters in London. She wasn't wearing a hoodie this time. She was wearing a custom-tailored white suit that looked like armor. She called an all-hands meeting. It was broadcast to every Stratton employee worldwide. "Yesterday," Jordan began, standing on the stage where Arthur usually gave his boring quarterly updates, "I was dragged off one of our planes because I didn't look like I belonged. I bought this company to ensure that never happens to anyone ever again." She didn't just fire the bad apples, she burned down the orchard and planted new trees. 1. The blind booking system. Jordan implemented a new software system for upgrades. Gate agents could no longer see names or photos when processing upgrades, only seat numbers and loyalty status. Bias was coded out of the equation. 2. The Employee Equity Program. Jordan took 10% of her own shares and distributed them into an employee pool. Every baggage handler, cleaner, and flight attendant became an owner. The morale skyrocketed. When you own the plane, you don't drag passengers off it. 3. The Banks Protocol. A new rule was added to the company handbook. Any employee witnessing discrimination by a colleague was required to intervene. If they did, they received a cash bonus. If they stayed silent, they were terminated. Stratton Airlines didn't just recover, it dominated. They won Airline of the Year 3 years in a row. Their stock split 4 times. And Arthur Wellington? He kept his job as CEO, but he was a changed man. He worked for Jordan now. He feared her, yes, but he also respected her more than anyone on earth. He kept the epaulets that he had stripped from Sterling on his desk as a paperweight, a constant reminder of the price of arrogance. 1 year later, JFK Airport, a rainy Tuesday. Jordan Banks was walking through the terminal. She was wearing a hoodie again, this time a black one with the Obsidian logo on it. She was heading to a flight to Tokyo. She approached the gate. The agent was a young woman, new to the job. She looked tired. "Boarding pass, please," the agent said, not looking up. Jordan scanned her phone. Beep. The agent looked at the screen. Her eyes went wide. The screen flashed, "Owner, Chairman." The agent looked up, terrified. She saw the hoodie. She saw the face. She recognized her immediately. "Ms. Banks!" the agent stammered, standing up so fast her chair rolled back and hit the wall. I'm so sorry, I didn't recognize you. Please let me escort you to the lounge. Let me get the manager." Jordan smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile. "Relax," Jordan said. "I'm just a passenger today. Is the flight full?" "Yes, ma'am, completely full." "Good," Jordan said. "That's good for business." She turned to walk on to the jet bridge. "Ms. Banks?" the agent called out. Jordan stopped and turned back. "Thank you," the agent said. For everything. My mum works in catering. She got the equity bonus last month. It paid for my tuition." Jordan nodded. "Tell your mum I said to keep up the good work." She walked down the jet bridge. She entered the plane. She didn't turn left into first class. She walked past row 1. She walked past business class. She walked all the way back to row 34, a window seat in economy. She sat down next to a young college student who looked confused. Aren't you the owner?" the student asked. "I am," Jordan said, buckling her seatbelt. "Why are you sitting in coach?" Jordan looked out the window at the rain-slicked tarmac. She thought about Sterling. She thought about Brenda. She thought about the $12 billion she had made, and the $5 billion she had spent to fix this broken thing. "Because," Jordan said, closing her eyes, "sometimes you have to remind yourself that the view is exactly the same, no matter where you sit. And besides," she opened one eye and winked at the student, "I want to see if the coffee is as bad as they say it is." The plane pushed back, the engines roared, and Jordan Banks, the woman who was once dragged off the tarmac, took to the sky, not just as a passenger, but as the pilot of her own destiny. And that is how one act of arrogance cost a pilot his career, a billionaire his inheritance, and an airline its ownership. They judged a book by its cover, but they forgot that sometimes the book is the one writing the history. Jordan Banks proved that true power isn't about how loud you yell or how expensive your suit is. It's about knowing your worth and having the receipts to back it up. What do you think? Did Sterling deserve to lose his pension? Was buying the airline the ultimate power move? Or did Jordan go too far? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of high-flying justice, smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more stories about karma hitting back instantly, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss a upload. Until next time, fly safe, be kind, and never, ever judge someone in a hoodie.